a frontal assault is launched. Mortars fire on the target, but we receive heavy fire on the approach, suffering casualties and penetrations from surrounding enemy positions. Today we take a look on the basics on how to use artillery to isolate an enemy position. First, a look at the map. Our objective is to reach the farmhouse in the center. Our ability to approach is limited by rocky slopes left and right of the fork in the road, so we must attack head-on. The enemy positions are yet unknown, but we expect positions around the farmhouse covering the area we need to cross. And likely an additional position on the forested hill, most likely with heavier weapons because of the distances involved. The farmhouse will, however, obstruct this position partially. We will set up most of our observers on the low ridge left of the village to identify enemy positions and to be able to call for fire when they are identified. Additionally, we will set up our reduced rifle platoon in the village together with the mortar company HQ to act as potential fire support and additional spotter. We will, however, not have enough direct fire weapons to suppress all enemies because we face a reinforced enemy platoon. So we are entirely reliant on our mortar support in regards to that. For this we have 2 mortar sections, 2 mortars each, on map and 3 off-map sections. That is up to 7 parallel fire missions. That should be plenty. If you need more information on the differences between on and off-map mortars, a guide is in the info card. When the enemy positions are identified, we will put down our fire missions to suppress them. We will use the off-map mortars for that, since on this occasion they have access to more rounds than our purely man-portable on-map sections. The on-map mortars will be used to additionally obscure the area around the farm with smoke and support where we deem them necessary. Since we only have to obscure a relatively short distance, the wind will create a linear screen for us, even if we are just firing smoke on a point target. When you intend to use smoke, always check your conditions tab first. When all our support is in place, we will push forward with our mounted Panzergrenadier Zug and breach team to quickly storm the position. Our direct fire weapons should be enough to gain fire superiority on the remaining enemy forces. The details of that will have to be figured out on the go. Sadly, I was struck again by some defenses not being rendered in. Thankfully, they don't make too much difference, since half-tracks are just mildly inconvenienced by them. Thanks to Wanderer for the idea to record them in the scenario editor setting. Now we start. We quickly bring our spotters in position on the low ridge. For this we can also utilize HQs if we are low on observers, even if it can be risky. We use quick to approach the ridge and the slow order for the last part, where the ridge no longer provides cover. That way our spotters are in the prone and concealed in the bushes. We also give them short target arcs to prevent them from firing, but we do not use hide, because we want them to spot as much as possible. Additionally, we set up the mortars close to their section HQs. We want to maintain communications as much as possible so that our spotters can utilize as many tubes as possible. Adjust your positions if you feel the need. If uncertain, check the line of sight with a target order. Better a few more seconds preparation than a turn wasted. The spotters on the ridge are set up. Now for the Overwatch position in the village. We send our rifle platoon and mortar HQ in the closest building. The platoon HQ will move to the upper floor because from there it can maintain contact to its subordinate squads when they take up position on the edge of the village. We also give short target arcs at the end positions so we don't reveal ourselves through fire. After that, our Panzergrenadier Zug goes into a covered position behind the church from where we can start the assault when the time comes. We could also give a hide command to the half-tracks to reduce their noise signature. But I forgot that. The vehicles are set up there in a checkerboard formation to hopefully reduce traffic jams. I could have also spread them out during the setup phase, but I opted for simple pauses to decongest them at the start. Now for the second turn. We concentrate on our Overwatch position for now. Since we now move into an area where the enemy likely has fields of fire, we use smoke grenades carried by our units. Our platoon HQ gets a pause and a phase order to increase the likelihood that they put the smoke where it is useful. If they run around on the square when pop smoke triggers, the likelihood of anything useful coming out of it is severely diminished. We do the same with one of our rifle squads. We intend to smoke the gaps between the two-story building and the two red roofs on the edge of the village to take up position in there. A short check on the progress of the spotters. The mortar HQ will now also receive a pause. This one is however meant to allow the smoke to develop before they cross the road and pop their own smoke to cover the rifle squad destined for the left red roof. The HQ will cross fast, then a short pause to face correctly and pop smoke. We are now getting our first enemy contacts and our first smoke popped well. If it was corn, I'd like some butter with that. We adjust pauses where needed and trust that the second smoke also works out and order our first rifle squad to cross into the right red roof after a pause. We also need to start to get an understanding of our delay for fire missions if we haven't already done that. 7 to 8 minutes for the off map on the HQ. The observers tend to be slightly faster. Next turn. There should be smoke on the street. Sadly, should doesn't equal is. The smoke popped in the other direction. Maybe next time we split the squad before popping smoke to reduce confusion. The enemy starts taking shots at us, but relatively ineffective. Our first rifle squad took up position despite the smoking failure. Our second squad gets a fast order to get into the left red roof. The mortar HQ goes into its position. Target arcs get adjusted for all units to hold fire. I realize I messed some up at the start. We now start checking for line of sight for our spotters to decide who orders which fire mission on which target to service them all. We spread them out to be able to cover as many positions as possible. It is now time to start the process of calling for fire. We start with the mortar section that takes the longest to be called in. We don't select any additional delay because we synchronize our missions based on the call-in time. Now we mainly wait. The enemy fire has died down. With a human opponent, an artillery strike on the village edge or area fire should be expected. We set up our following fire missions, but disaster strikes. We misjudged our line of sight and have to adapt. There is no real option of moving around. We have chosen medium intensity with only one tube to make our bombs last longer, but they are still limited and we must find a solution. One of the section HQs manages to cover the last fire mission. Thankfully, our remaining spotters have still contact to our on-map tubes to call in the smoke. The smoke is intended to be called in a bit later anyway, to not obscure our artillery spotters too much. So my disappointment is still measurable and my day in decent shape. For the smoke mission, we move one spotter. We have to stagger the call-in because of our shuffle. Our remaining spotters have again different call-in times. We can however now start to call in the smoke. As stated in the beginning, we use a point target and let the wind spread the smoke along the enemy lines to obscure our approach. We again wait with excitement, as not much happens. The second smoke order is called in. We now just utilize the remaining tubes and spotters where we assume the need, because we likely won't have the time to be reactive with them. One mission on the hill, one behind the objective as cut-off. The last mission is called in. The wait continues. And I will keep the wait in for a simple reason. You need patience. There is no use in setting up an elaborate fire plan when in the end we just rush before it comes down. We are witnessing the calm before the storm. Enjoy it. There might of course be scenarios where the enemy forces your hand, but don't defeat yourself by striking before the time. Our mortars have now started firing, but we still wait for a few seconds before we start the maneuver and open fire from the Overwatch positions. By doing so, we increase suppression over time and allow the smoke to develop further. The Panzergrenadierzug gets set up for the maneuver. For our half-tracks, we set up a bounding maneuver and utilize their MGs to suppress the enemy positions not under mortar fire. The infantry in the half-tracks will dismount via hunt order, so if the half-track gets immobilized, they will not just run over the open field. Now there is no turning back. We will now see if our preparation was sufficient. Our smoke missions seem to have landed in a way that rhymes with kiss surely, partially obstructing our own fields of fire. We adjust targets where possible and continue. Even though our half-tracks cannot affect the enemy as intended, we receive little incoming fire. Our half-track with breach team follows up at high speed to its next position. Our infantry gets target briefly orders to immediately open fire on the enemy foxholes when they dismount. Targets are adjusted where deemed appropriate. Our infantry half-tracks receive fire after reaching their last waypoint. The dismounting infantry gladly suffers no casualties. We direct the fire of one half-track at an enemy position at the far side of the river, not yet suppressed. Our breach team is supposed to prepare 2 breaches, one through the wall, the second directly into the farmhouse. Everything seems to work out, but one of our unit breaks. That's what you get when using green troops. We try to get them back in the fight via a simple assault order. I wanted to avoid the entrance on the side, but that's no longer possible. Our 2nd infantry squad moves up to follow through the breach. The Zugführer half-track gets a target arc and is ordered to open up. Hopefully, the leader and his truck can keep the enemy down, so the 1st squad can advance. The 2nd breach failed, likely saving the life of the breach team, because it allowed the half-tracks to open fire on the enemy house, further suppressing the enemy before the breach team entered. But that was mostly it. After entering and clearing the house with split teams, we suffer only 2 casualties, resulting in a tactical victory. If you would suggest another way of handling mortar support, please feel free to point it out. If you found this helpful, don't be shy and show it with a thumbs up. And check out this video for an example attack without artillery support. May your day be blessed, and thanks for watching.